approach as an exercise physiologist is vastly different. And that is, if the stress in your life is going to continue to increase, you only have one option. And that is to build your resiliency to stress. And what I mean by this is that there is a way to train your body to recover from stress more quickly and more efficiently, so you are ready and back on your feet for that next stressor that you know is coming. And there is also a way to raise your body's threshold for stress so that you can handle more before that stress response is triggered. And also, we oftentimes think of stress as something that just happens in our head, but stress is a chemical, hormonal event that radically changes our chemistry and physiology. And so we're going to be approaching it not from a mental perspective today, but how can we correct the chemistry? Because stress really isn't a psychology problem, it's a chemistry problem. And so I share lots of cognitive and physiological techniques for people to build their resiliency to stress. And I want to share just a couple of those with you today. So the end result of the stress response is that balance is restored. This is a beautifully designed system, and all of us are hardwired this way. But the critical step to restoring balance is this short burst of intense physical activity, what I call play it out. Now, in today's day and age, we're faced with a lot of stress, but we're stuck in a long meeting. We're sitting for long hours behind a desk. We're, trapped behind a wheel in rush hour traffic. We do not get the opportunity to play it out. It's not okay to punch your boss in the face or to just take off running out of a stressful meeting. So then what happens to those stress hormones when we don't play it out? Absolutely nothing. Those stress hormones just continue to circulate and circulate and recirculate, and they have a lot of negative consequences on the brain and the body. So cortisol is very strategic about recovering energy. It wants to do it in the most efficient and effective way possible. So it makes us crave high-calorie foods, i.e. full of fat, full of sugar. There is a physiological reason why we crave junk food, fast food, comfort food when we're stressed out, because there's a lot of energy there. Cortisol, when it makes us deposit fat on the body, does it in two very specific places. Around the midsection, what I refer to as our fight or flight fuel allocation station. That's what this is. It also makes us deposit fat in the artery walls. So this is actually called visceral fat, and fat in the arteries, we know both of them dramatically increase our risk of cardiovascular disease, of stroke, of diabetes, of certain forms of cancer. Cortisol is responsible for sleep problems when we're stressed out. You can see immunity, sexual health, all kinds of things. If that's not enough, cortisol can also negatively affect brain structure and brain function. Cortisol kills cells in the brain relating to memory and learning. Isn't this all good news this morning? You're like, what a great way to start my day. It kills cells related to memory and learning. So you literally lose your dang mind when you're stressed out. It's just not a figure of speech. But cortisol also determines what part of your brain you're using. We actually have 3 different major components to our brain. So the very first thing that evolved in our brain was really the brain stem. It's oftentimes referred to as the reptilian brain. And this brain only has the ability to do the 3 Fs: fight, flight, fornicate. Okay? So this part of the brain is about survival. Its job is to act and react. Then the next part of the brain to develop was the limbic system. And this is our emotional system. And the limbic system is hardwired to be defensive in order to protect us. Then it wasn't until quite a bit later that actually the advanced portion of the brain, the neocortex, developed over the top of this primitive brain. And this is where we got our ability for complex thought, for reasoning, and for language. The advanced part of the brain, this is the only place that has a capacity for thought. So what makes up Sneaky Pete is the reptilian and the limbic. So I want you to understand, Sneaky Pete only has the capacity to act and react and to be highly emotional. Sneaky Pete does not have the capacity for thought at all. Every time we're exposed to stress, Sneaky Pete and caveman brain completely hijack advanced brain. When you are stressed out, Sneaky Pete is making important business decisions. Sneaky Pete is courting your spouse or significant other. He's raising your children, if you have them. Sneaky Pete is totally driving the bus, which explains a lot of things, right, that we do when we're stressed out. Now, it does not have to end this way. This does not all have to be bad news. We're turning the corner now, because if we play it out, if we get the short burst of intense physical activity, we get the bliss molecules. We get things like endorphins. Okay, endo means that this is manufactured inside your body, and orphan means that this is a form of morphine. Now, I have never had morphine myself, but I hear it's pretty freaking fantastic. That you are happy, you just do not have a care in the world, you're relaxed, you're in no pain whatsoever. The body also releases things like endocannabinoids. How many of you have heard of these before? Okay, a couple people. How many of you, like when you stare at that word, you're like, I can make a pretty educated guess as to what these are all about? This is a cannabis-like substance that your body also produces in response to exercise that has all the same effects of marijuana, okay? But I think without the munchies, so that's a good thing. So these bliss molecules are your pharmacy for stress. There is a direct connection between training your heart rate to drop and recover after the stress of exercise and after the stress of everyday life. Training your body to recover from any type of stress, whether it's physical, emotional, or mental, improves the body's resiliency. Short bursts of intense physical activity like this also raise the body's threshold for stress. Interval training, we know, is the best way to elevate your level of fitness. And again, fitness means that you can recover from stress more quickly and more efficiently. And research shows that people who are more physically fit can successfully handle more stress. And the data suggest an inverse relationship. The higher your level of fitness, the lower your level of stress. Okay, so for 20 seconds, I want you to give it. Are you ready? All right, here we go. Oh my gosh, you guys, people are usually, you were all just like bam, bam. Nice, mix it up. This is a good one too, because if you want to add like a visualization technique right here, like, yeah. Good, keep it going, good. Nice pace, nice intensity. Okay, that's time. Good, you can do 2 feet, like a little side to side, a little front to back. How many of you are like, sports bra heads up would have been good, Jenny? Thanks. Okay, that's time. Do you feel those bliss molecules? So you don't have to have a ton of equipment. You don't have to change clothes. So again, we just did 20 seconds. If literally all you have is 60 seconds, grab a card, play it out. So nutrition also plays a huge role in building resiliency, and there's an entire chapter. I also have entire workshops around eating for resiliency. But I want to share just one big thing with you today, because a lot of what we eat, how we eat it, when we eat it, can actually increase stress in our lives. But stress also can increase how, what, and when we eat. And a lot of us, just with our eating habits, inadvertently end up adding more stress on top of all the other stress that's happening. So when we're trying to change, it creates stress. We're trying to create new habits and routines, but that stress pulls us back to the comfort and security of our established habits and routines, which might be the very same things that we're trying to change. So change initiates the battle of the brains. And we know Sneaky Pete is always going to win. So most change models focus on Just use your advanced brain. I've told you what to do. Now go use your willpower and self-discipline to do it. How well does that typically work? Not so great. Most change models completely ignore the fact that there's a whole nother portion of the brain that needs to be addressed. So my change model uses both advanced brain, but more importantly, a program for Sneaky Pete, because we got to get him on board first before we can even start thinking about advanced brain. And we are extremely highly influenced by our environments. Our environments completely dictate how much movement we get and how much food we eat. When you go to the grocery store, where are the staples located? But the eggs, milk, bread. The furthest away from the front door, so Sneaky Pete has to walk through this maze of really tempting, high fat, high sugar, highly processed, highly profitable foods. So our environments really can be disastrous. But there are also environments that we can create that are much more conducive to resiliency, performance, and health. So instead of disastrous defaults, what we can do is to create optimal defaults, where we make a tweak to our environment, where making the healthy, resilient choice is the easiest choice. And in fact, if we wanted to make a choice that was not healthy or not good for our resilience, we would actually have to expend extra energy to opt out of that behavior. Optimal defaults have been incredibly successful at a huge scale, public policy. In countries where you have to opt in, sign up to be an organ donor, participation rate is 15%. 15%. But in countries where the default option is that you are automatically enrolled and you have to opt out if you don't want to participate, it's 98%. We think evolution's over because, look at you, yeah, okay. We are still evolving. Evolution is not over. And in a lot of ways, we're evolving in ways that aren't so great. Our ancestors never could have fathomed the pace of work, the amount of stress that we're faced with on a daily basis. If you start training to build your resiliency, you will not only survive, but thrive well into the future, and it is only going to take you 60 seconds to get started. Thank you.